Maximum carnage. It all started when Cletus Cassidy escaped from Ravencroft Institute, and he wasn't alone. Carnage had found new strength in chaos, and he quickly built a twisted army with like-minded maniacs. Shriek, who could manipulate sound and stir hatred in the hearts of citizens, stood by his side, along with the demonic doppelganger, the animalistic carrion, and the knife-wielding demogoblin. Together, they tore through the streets of New York, leaving behind a trail of fear, fire, and blood. The city fell into panic as regular people, influenced by Shriek's psychic screams, turned on each other in violent mobs. Then the heroes intervened. Spider-Man was the first on the scene, but even he knew he couldn't face Carnage's chaos alone. He formed a shaky alliance with other street-level heroes, including Black Cat, Cloak and Dagger, Iron Fist, Captain America, and Nightwatch. But even with backup, Carnage's rampage only grew worse. Venom, Carnage's original father, returned with a personal vendetta. He and Spider-Man had to work side by side, setting aside years of bloodshed just to survive. But Spider-Man struggled with the growing pressure to match Carnage's brutality, especially as allies like Morbius and Deathlock suggested more lethal methods. And just like that, the line between justice and vengeance became blurred as the body count rose. In the end, it was not brute force that stopped Carnage, but strategy. Spider-Man used a device that emitted positive emotions to neutralize Shriek's influence, snapping the mobs out of their violent trance. With the city no longer in chaos, the heroes finally overwhelmed Carnage's gang and brought them down. Carnage was captured and contained for the time being, but the emotional wounds left on Spider-Man and his allies ran deep. New York barely caught its breath before another disaster struck the Marvel Universe. This time, not from the shadows, but from within the very heart of Asgard's fall, Siege. Everything came crashing down when Norman Osborn, the former Green Goblin, rose to power and took control of national security. After the events of Secret Invasion, he manipulated the chaos to position himself as the head of HAMMER, replacing Shield and building his own twisted version of the Avengers. He called them the Dark Avengers, a group made up of villains and unstable characters disguised as heroes. Bullseye posed as Hawkeye, Moonstone pretended to be Ms. Marvel, and Mac Gargan, formerly the Scorpion, wore the black suit as a savage version of Spider-Man. But it wasn't enough for Norman to wear the crown of Earth's protector. He had bigger plans, and his eyes locked on Asgard, which had mysteriously descended from the heavens and was floating above Broxton, Oklahoma. He declared Asgard a threat to national security, but really, he wanted to conquer it and cement his power forever. With the Sentry, one of the most powerful yet unstable beings in the Marvel Universe, under his control, Osborn launched a full-scale invasion of Asgard. Thor was blindsided and overwhelmed, and the gods of Asgard were forced into a brutal war on their own doorstep. As chaos unfolded, Captain America returned to rally the real heroes. Iron Man, who had been disgraced and exiled after Civil War, rejoined the battle as well. The Avengers, the Young Avengers, and even Nick Fury stepped in to bring down Osborn's regime. But the real horror came from the Sentry. In the heat of battle, his dark side, known as the Void, was unleashed, becoming an unstoppable force of destruction. It tore through Asgard, reducing the Celestial Kingdom to rubble. In the end, it took everything the Avengers had, and Thor himself was forced to kill his friend to stop the madness. Norman Osborn was finally arrested, his mask shattered both figuratively and literally. But peace was short-lived because not long after, New York would fall into darkness again. And this time, the Devil of Hell's Kitchen would take center stage. Shadowland. This time, it started with a hero losing his way. Matt Murdock, better known as Daredevil, returned to New York after taking control of the Hand, a deadly ninja clan with a long history of corruption and violence. He believed he could change them from the inside, turn their power into a force for justice, and clean up the streets of Hell's Kitchen. But the Hand's darkness ran deep, and slowly it began to infect him. As weeks passed, Daredevil grew more violent and unrecognizable. He built a fortress called Shadowland right in the heart of Hell's Kitchen and declared it a place of order and punishment. Criminals were executed in the street, and his old allies started to worry he was no longer the man they knew. When Daredevil crossed the line by killing Bullseye, the same villain who had murdered Elektra and Karen Page, it was the final straw. This wasn't just about justice anymore, it was about control and vengeance. Heroes like Spider-Man, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, Moon Knight, and even Elektra herself tried to reach Matt, but he refused to listen, convinced he was doing the right thing. They discovered that Daredevil had been possessed by the demon known as the Beast, the same entity that powered the Hand's ancient evil. It wasn't just Matt's mind at stake now, it was his soul. The battle inside Shadowland turned into a war between friends, as they fought to save Daredevil from himself and the darkness that gripped him. In the end, Matt realized the monster he had become and chose to end it all by faking his own death and vanishing from New York. With Daredevil gone and Shadowland dismantled, the streets of Hell's Kitchen were quiet again. But that silence wouldn't last long, because the next war would stretch beyond Earth's borders and into the heart of the cosmos itself, infinity. While most Marvel events explode from Earthbound chaos, Infinity launched with a double threat that hit the universe and Earth at the same time. This cosmic nightmare began when the Builders, ancient alien beings who predated even the Celestials, decided to cleanse the universe of what they considered flawed life. They moved across star systems like a storm, wiping out civilizations without mercy. The Avengers had to leave Earth and form a cosmic strike team to stop them, joining forces with the Kree, Skrulls, and even the Shi'ar to hold the line. But while Earth's defenders were off in space, something worse happened back home. Thanos arrived. He didn't come for conquest or vengeance, at least not openly. He came searching for his son, an inhuman hybrid named Thane, and ordered his Black Order to raise Earth in the process. Corvus Glaive, Proxima Midnight, Ebony Maw, Supergiant, and Black Dwarf tore through Earth's defenses, challenging its mightiest protectors. The Inhumans, led by Black Bolt, were forced to act. In a desperate move, Black Bolt released a Terrigen bomb into the atmosphere. This didn't just repel Thanos, it triggered Terrigenesis worldwide, unlocking powers and dormant Inhuman descendants scattered across the planet. This explosion of new powered individuals would reshape future Marvel events for years. Meanwhile, in space, the Avengers and their cosmic allies finally pushed back the Builders. But it came at a cost, and by the time they returned, the Earth was scorched and forever changed. Thanos was defeated and frozen in a state of living death by his own son Thane, but the damage had been done. The heroes were fractured, the planet was crawling with newly born Inhumans, and a terrifying realization was sinking in. Not every villain came from the stars, and not every battle could be won with fists, because the next event would twist the very souls of Marvel's greatest icons. Axis. Everything went out of control after a single fight went too far. Red Skull had stolen Charles Xavier's brain and fused it with his own mind, turning himself into the telepathic monster known as Red Onslaught. Using his twisted version of Xavier's powers, he projected hate across the world, turning humans against mutants and chaos into order. The Avengers and X-Men tried to stop him, but Red Onslaught was too strong, especially with a pair of twisted sentinels built by Tony Stark himself under his control. So, the heroes made a dangerous decision. With Doctor Doom and Scarlet Witch by their side, they cast a massive inversion spell. The spell worked. Red Onslaught was purged and transformed back into the Red Skull. But there was a catch no one expected. The spell didn't just flip the villain's moral compass. It hit nearly everyone nearby. Heroes became villains, and villains became heroes. Iron Man embraced his worst traits and created a city of techno-fascism. Sabretooth, once a savage killer, turned noble and tried to live like Wolverine. Deadpool fought with honor, while Carnage became a strange version of a misunderstood hero. Even Apocalypse returned, not as a conqueror, but as Genesis, a man trying to find peace. Meanwhile, inverted Avengers like Thor, Captain America, and Hulk turned aggressive and authoritarian. Steve Rogers, now old and powerless, had to lead a team of villains turned good to fight the Avengers and save the world. It became a mess of identity, loyalty, and madness. Some enjoyed their inversion, others fought it. Eventually, another spell was cast to reverse the effects, but it didn't reach everyone. Iron Man escaped the reversion, and Sabretooth stayed inverted, starting a new chapter in his life. Trust between heroes was torn once again, and the cost of magic became more feared than ever. But this was nothing compared to what would happen next, when the entire multiverse of Spider-Man would be forced to fight for survival. Spiderverse. It all started with a family of monsters who fed on Spider-Men like they were snacks. The Inheritors, led by the cruel Morlun, were ancient beings who traveled across the multiverse hunting anyone with the spider totem in their DNA. One by one, spider people from alternate Earths began to fall. No matter how strong or skilled they were, the Inheritors always found them, drained their life force, and moved on to the next. But something changed when they came after Peter Parker from Earth 6116. This Peter had survived Morlun once before, and he wasn't going to let it happen again. So he joined forces with every other spider person he could find. From Spider-Gwen and Spider-Man Noir to Spider-Ham and the fan favorite Miles Morales, the multiverse was suddenly filled with webs. There was also Silk, a woman bitten by the same radioactive spider as Peter. She had been hidden away for years to protect her from the Inheritors, but once she escaped her bunker, she became a key target. Then there was Spider-Man 2099, the futuristic web-slinger from Earth 928, and even the Japanese Spider-Man with his giant robot, Leopardon. Together, they formed an army of spider people who were all different but shared the same core: responsibility, courage, and tragedy. The war with the Inheritors hit its peak when the group learned of three special spider totems known as the Bride, the Scion, and the Other. The Inheritors believed that sacrificing them would bring ultimate power, and they stopped at nothing to get them. In the final battle, the spiders fought back with everything they had. Peter outsmarted Morlun and trapped the Inheritors in a radioactive world where they could no longer feed. The multiverse was saved, but many Spider-Men didn't survive the fight. The survivors returned to their realities, forever changed. The web had been stretched to its limit, but what came next wasn't about fate or power. It was about a reckoning, and the gods themselves would come to judge humanity. Civil War. It wasn't a villain or alien invasion that tore the heroes apart this time. It was a television crew and a team of young, reckless superheroes trying to boost ratings. The New Warriors tracked a group of villains in Stamford, Connecticut, but one of those villains was Nitro, a human bomb with no regard for life. He exploded near a school, killing over 600 people, including dozens of children. In the aftermath, the public turned on superheroes. The government responded with the Superhuman Registration Act, demanding every powered individual unmask and register or be treated as a criminal. Iron Man saw this as a necessary step. He believed regulation would save lives and preserve public trust. He became the face of the pro-registration side, working with CILD, leading raids on unregistered heroes, and even building a prison in the negative zone. Captain America saw things differently. To him, forced registration was a betrayal of civil liberties. He led the resistance, protecting heroes who refused to reveal their identities, like Daredevil, Luke Cage, and Cloak and Dagger. It wasn't long before fists flew and allies picked sides. Spider-Man, caught in the middle, initially supported Iron Man and even unmasked on live TV. But when he saw how far Tony was willing to go, especially using villains to hunt heroes, he switched sides. One of the most brutal fights saw Thor's clone, created by Tony and Reed Richards, kill Goliath. That single act left a stain no hero could forget. Eventually, the war reached Washington, D.C., where the final battle raged. Just as Captain America had Iron Man beaten, civilians pulled Steve back, horrified by the chaos. Cap surrendered, not because he lost, but because the people needed hope, not war. The heroes were fractured. Trust was gone, friendships were broken, and some never returned to the same path. And while they were busy fighting each other, something was already stirring in the shadows, ready to break the heavens and the earth in half. Judgment Day. It began with a war that wasn't supposed to happen. The Eternals, ancient beings designed to protect Earth from deviants, learned something that shattered their faith. They discovered mutants were classified as deviants by their own programming. And once that truth was out, the Eternals launched an assault on Krakoa, home of the X-Men and the heart of mutant kind's resurrection protocols. The Quiet Council, led by Charles Xavier, Magneto, and Emma Frost, fought back fiercely. They had just begun to shape a new era of peace for mutants, and now they were under siege. The Avengers were pulled into the chaos after the Eternals attacked Avengers Mountain, which was no ordinary base but the corpse of a dead Celestial. The war had quickly outgrown its starting point, and then the line between God and machine disappeared completely. Tony Stark, Ajak, Makari, and Mr. Sinister made a risky decision. They used science, faith, and a bit of hubris to resurrect the fallen Celestial and ask it to judge humanity. The Celestial did more than wake up. It announced that every single person on Earth would be judged, one by one. Not as a group, not as a species, but as individuals. Heroes, villains, and everyone in between were suddenly under divine scrutiny. Captain America failed his judgment. So did Mystique and Star Fox. Even good intentions didn't guarantee a pass. This wasn't about saving the world anymore, it was about earning the right to exist. The pressure cracked people in ways bullets never could. Phastos doubted his purpose. Nightcrawler questioned faith. Jean Grey begged the Celestial for a second chance. But when the god finally turned on the world, it was ordinary people who stood up and proved humanity's worth. The Celestial was destroyed, but the damage was done. The world was shaken, the Eternals were broken, and trust was thinner than ever.